I'm sitting here at Rollins Savanna on the north end, February 20th in the afternoon. I've just finished about a month and a half of filming the wildlife around here because it occurred to me I needed a project to work on. Usually this time of year is really unmotivating for me. I just want to curl up in bed and watch movies. And that's a little depressing. So I wanted something to do. So I set myself a project and I had three main rules. The first rule is that I would limit my zone to Rollins Savanna, and even within that, just the northern end, from Drury Lane to the fork in the path where the brook goes by and back. And I would film any animals I could find. They didn't have to be exotic because I was probably not going to find an exotic animal anyways. So if it was a squirrel or a bug or a bird or a deer, I was going to film it. And then the third rule is I was going to learn about the animal by doing actual research and keeping track of it. And I was going to practice doing a voiceover so I'd have something to say about those critters in the video. So I bundled up and I started going out to Rollins Savanna first thing in the morning on weekends, looking for something that was alive.
It's funny that as I developed my idea for this project, I was able to find sources that directly reinforce the idea. One was a YouTube channel I started following a while back, Bayou Josh, who photographs birds and takes us along. The other was Elizabeth Marshall Thomas's The Hidden Life of Deer, a book about observing the deer behind her New Hampshire farm on a particularly bitter winter in 2007. Winter this year has been bleak and cold, though not particularly snowy. It wouldn't seem like ideal conditions under which to begin a video project, but there are a few advantages. For one thing, it's less crowded in January. And for another, the sun rises at a much more reasonable hour. I actually found myself waiting around for sunrise. Take that, June. Finally, the animals don't have a lot to say about the weather. They're out here doing their thing no matter what. Seems churlish to complain about the cold when I can go back inside anytime. According to allaboutbirds.org, mallards are the most familiar ducks in the world. In fact, they are the ancestors of just about every domestic duck bred today. Interestingly, only the females do the classic quack. Males just make a quieter, rasping sound. Mallards will eat all kinds of stuff, from plants and seeds to bugs, worms, and freshwater shrimp. The cold doesn't seem to be bothering these guys in the slightest. The next weekend, though, when I came back for another look, the brook had frozen over and the ducks were gone. Going back to The Hidden Life of Deer, Thomas says that she was once told by another naturalist to begin by studying deer, which are within a mile of almost everyone. Studying deer can give an understanding of what it's like to try to learn from wildlife. I saw white-tailed deer almost every time I visited Rollins Savanna this winter. Sometimes they were quite far off, and so well hidden in their beige winter coats that they were essentially impossible to see without a telephoto lens. In fact, the first time I observed the Rollins deer from a distance, I was just panning the camera through the tall grass, envisioning making some point about how anything could be hiding out there, when up popped a deer's head. Sure enough, after a little panning around, I found several deer browsing the grass, pausing periodically to look around before going back to their munching. Usually they were led by this impressive buck, who I began to think of as the great prince of the forest. In her book, Thomas follows several groups of deer, each of which seem to follow a hierarchy both within the group and from group to group. Each group has a clear leader, and the leader of her alpha group, who she refers to as the beautiful doe, is the leader of all of her groups. The leader determines when it's okay to enter an area and when it's time to leave. As far as I can see, the great prince of the forest is the leader of the Rollins deer. He is always out at the front of the line, usually followed by 2 or 3 does and their fawns. According to wildlifeillinois.org, white-tailed bucks are supposed to lose their antlers in the wintertime, sometime between late December and mid-March. Luckily for me, these gents kept their antlers, so it became pretty easy for me to distinguish the great prince from a pair of younger bucks who I always saw together. I tried to come up with clever names for them, but nothing really stuck, so I just started thinking of them as the brothers. From a distance, it's easy to watch them moving in a loose line from east to west, the great prince out front. The rest strung out behind. With the fawns occasionally scurrying to catch up with their moms. It's everyone's responsibility to be on the lookout. But as long as the prince says it's okay, for the most part they keep their cool. The brothers, though, are a little cheekier. Here, you can clearly see that they want me to keep moving so they can cross the path. See that little stamp of the foot? That's sending me a message. I guess I won that stare down. Though I did feel a little bad about it afterwards. On to the birds. Red-bellied woodpeckers are pretty common in the area. You can usually hear them before you see them. Not just that head-banging thing they do, but their call is pretty distinctive. These guys nest in dead trees, and they come back to the same tree from year to year. Everything I know, or, well, think I know, about them comes from allaboutbirds.org, a website put out by Cornell University. Speaking of all about birds, want to hear something cool? A red-bellied woodpecker can stick out its tongue nearly 2 inches past the end of its beak. The tip is barbed, and the bird's spit is sticky, making it easier to snatch prey from deep crevices. Males have longer, wider-tipped tongues than females, possibly allowing a breeding pair to forage in slightly different places on their territory and maximize their use of available food. Red-bellies aren't the only birdies out there today. If you listen carefully, you can hear chickadees and white-breasted nuthatches. Everybody's out looking for some breakfast. And sometimes the red-bellies don't even need to look in the trees. They can check right down on the ground with everybody else. Maybe they're just enjoying the fact that the snow has melted for a couple of days. Remember that dirt? Oh yeah. Sometimes red-bellied woodpeckers will wedge large nuts into bark crevices to make it a little easier to smash them into tiny pieces. Sounds like a lot of work to me. Maybe this guy's taking a little break. During the course of this project, I really tried to keep my camera steady, but the white-breasted nuthatch just wasn't having it. They move so fast, I was lucky to get any shots at all. Just like the woodpecker, the nuthatch likes to jam food into cracks and then whack the good stuff out. According to All About Birds, apparently in winter you can find nuthatches joining flocks of chickadees or titmice. Maybe it's a Safety in numbers kind of thing. You can't miss that call, though. Sounds like a toy. At least he held still for a second. Thank you. Make me look like a more competent cameraman. I really appreciate the help. I did learn one thing in this video. I need to find a quieter jacket. Hear that rustling? That's me trying not to move. Okay. I think these are American tree sparrows. But the thing is, there are like 26 different types of sparrows in Illinois, and no offense, but they all kind of look the same. If these are American tree sparrows, though, I do have some fun facts about them. For example, they don't like trees. They eat on the ground, they sleep on the ground, they basically do everything on the ground. So, why the name? But European settlers thought they looked kind of like Eurasian tree sparrows. Well, if they can be that blasé about naming a bird, so can I. Incidentally, if you know anything about birds and you know whether I'm right or not, please tell me. All kidding aside, I do prefer to be at least kind of accurate, if at all possible. While we're on the subject of me feeling kind of stupid, did you know there's no such thing as a robin redbreast? Yeah, I was trying to look up this bird for like 5 minutes and I kept typing in robin redbreast, and that's apparently not even a thing. It's an American robin. So thank you, Mom, for making my whole life a lie. So here's something interesting about robins. We tend to think of them as like the harbingers of spring, right? It's like the robins, they're in the lawn in spring. Actually, a lot of them stick around all winter long. They'll hang out in the trees in great big flocks, and they just don't go to your lawn. So if you go to the woods, you'll find lots of robins out there. The red-tailed hawk is probably the most common hawk in America. And if you've ever seen a Western movie, you've probably heard its call, since that's a sound effect used for pretty much any bird of prey in movies. I saw lots of red-tails flying over the savannah, but most of the time I was unable to focus the camera before they were out of sight. This guy was doing what they do best, sitting in a high place, surveying the territory. Interestingly, according to allaboutbirds.org, red-tailed hawks have been seen hunting as a pair, guarding opposite sides of the same tree to catch tree squirrels. Northern harriers look a lot like owls, but are really hawks. They like to float low over grasslands and pounce on rodents. Apparently, they'll sometimes hold larger prey underwater to drown them. They're an impressive sight, and a lot easier to film than red-tails because of the way they seem to float over the ground looking for mice. So we're back. I hope you enjoyed that video. I really enjoyed making it. It's funny that it took me a month and a half, 2 months to make something that's about 12 minutes long, but it's been a really fun process for me. I love learning new things, and I feel like I have learned a lot over the course of this project. I've gotten better using a long telephoto lens for filming wildlife. I've learned more about deer and the animals around me, and I've learned just how much there is to learn. There's still lots of stuff I want to learn more about. I want to learn more about how to film wildlife, finding better spots. I want to learn more about the behavior of the animals that I'm seeing. I'm going to keep reading The Hidden Life of Deer. I want to find some coyotes. I heard them once. A whole pack of them howling. It was really cool. And I went running and I couldn't find them. So I definitely want to get some coyotes in there. I think that'll be really neat. And I want to start the next video, I think is going to be moving towards spring. Obviously, it's the end of February now, so I start working on March into April, take another 2 months, and I think I'll focus on the southern end of Rollins a little bit more. We'll still come back to the north end to keep track of my deer herd, but also moving along Washington Street where there's water that's easier to access. So as the larger water birds like the snowy egrets and great blue herons start to come back, I'll be able to get some of them.
I think that'll be pretty cool. So we'll just see the change of the seasons and get a sense of what Rollins Savanna has to offer. If you enjoyed it, you can like and subscribe. I think that's actually the first time I've said that. I feel like a YouTube cliche, but I will be still adding more stuff. So like and subscribe if you want to see some more. And if I was wrong on anything, let me know. This is me learning about critters. So I came from a position of pretty much zero knowledge, and I've got some knowledge now, but I'm always looking for more. So if you can point out some stuff that I did wrong, hit me. I mean, don't hit me, be nice about it, but definitely tell me, because I want to know. So thank you, and I'll see you next time.